First, so we start off with a rectangle.
Yeah.
Okay, just draw a rectangle. Obviously, you'd make it the right size. To check the size, remember press D for dimensions.
Yeah.
Pull that out and change it to what you want it to be. So that's supposed to be, 180 or whatever it is. You can put that in, press enter, and it's going to move it. Once you've got your rectangle, we've got two rounded, escape to get out of that. You've got two rounded ends, which we can put here and here, doesn't really matter. So we go to sketch and fillet and click there. And if you think that looks about right, 30 millimeters, maybe you could go 30, you could go 40, see what that looks like, about how you've drawn it in your sketch. Then you go to those two lines.
Is there, so the curve counts in as the whole measurement that you gave me, so 400 times 280.
Yeah, so
So I have to keep in mind that I can't make it too long.
No, so in the direction from there to there, for example, that has to be, what did we say? It was 280, was it? Yeah, 280. Yes. And that other measurement would have to be 400. But there's no real advantage making it that large. 400 for this would be pretty
really
big.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's my basic outline shape. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is press O for offset, because I want to offset the that by like the wall thickness. By the wall, I mean the thickness of the plywood going around the edge, yeah, which is probably only say 3 millimeters or something. So I'm going to do that. Now, because I've got one end that's open, I don't really want these double lines here.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go into that, zoom in. I'm going to press L for line, and I'm going to draw a line there. And then I'm going to go across to the other end and do exactly the same thing. And do L, for line there. And then I can press T for trim, and I can get rid of that section. Oh, sorry, why has that just done that? That's not what I was expecting. T for that trim. Sorry, that's what I wanted. Okay, so there's my outline, and I've got my wall thickness going around 3 sides of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So then we can press our extrude feature, and I'll extrude the sides first of all. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't make any difference. Do the sides or do the base. It's not going to make a lot of difference. But for the purpose of this, let's do the side. If I just change that to my home view, I can get a feel for how far up we're pulling that. Let's say it's going to be, I don't know, what does your drawing say?
So for the pens I calculated, that would have to be 9, so I gave it a 10.
Okay.
Yeah, just to have a little extra. So
all right, so let's make that 100 on there. All right.
That would be, yeah, that's good. I used my ruler last night to see. I put it on my desk to see.
Yeah, I mean, bear in mind, if you want to hold something that tall, probably only needs to be gripped about that far up. Grip it too low, and obviously it's not going to support it. But probably halfway of.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is effectively what your piece of plywood would look like, right?
Yeah.
But it's got no base. So if we just go back into our sketches, can you see how that sketch, our original sketch, has been switched off? The light for it is showing us off. And the reason for that is as soon as you make anything 3D on here and create a body, it turns the sketch off. But you can just go back and turn it on.
Okay.
Because what we also want to do is we want to E for extrude and click that surface, because that needs some sort of thickness, and it would probably be 6 or 9 millimeters. Plywood thicknesses tend to go in 3s, 3, 6, 9, 12, so on, yeah? So probably 9 would be enough for that. And if you turn that around, that then is a pretty good representation of the basic base and sides. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
With your other pieces then, you could add those simply by...
So this would be by slots? It would be the concept that I had for my flat pack?
You might not even need that, to be honest. You might not even need that, because I think you could put probably some pins, because this is shown as being reasonably wide, yeah? You could put some pins through that, and with adhesive, because it's wide, there's enough surface area, and it might be enough. You could just effectively glue and pin them in place. Bear in mind, this is going to be thin, so to try and cut some of it away for that is going to be tricky. Okay.
So what? So the pins and then I can just like hot glue gun it.
Not hot glue, but you could use like you know when you glue up the base for your curved practice piece.
Yeah.
We use the white glue.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because the hot glue is thick, so it actually pushes things apart. You'd end up with like a gap, which is clearly visible with glue in between it, probably. So kind of not very nice. Yeah, exactly. So on this, Grace, I'm just thinking. In actual fact, I could have made this probably even easier if I just go back a few steps and I add on. If I take all that extrusion away and I go back to that, it probably makes sense on that sketch there to add my other pieces. So let's say that I've got, is that supposed to be half of that? Is that in the halfway point?
Yeah, I calculated half of it.
So the halfway point is there. So let me take let's do a center circle, put that on the halfway point. Okay, and I'm going to come down to here, and the width of that, let's say it wants to be 12, because again that's a plywood thickness. Okay, and we can click that. I'm going to delete all of that up there. The only reason I've done that is because being a center rectangle, it's allowed me to start that in the center. I'm just being lazy. There's other better ways of doing that, but I'm being lazy for the sake of speed. Right, we can get rid of those lines. We don't really need those either. They won't make any difference, but anyway. And then we've got another rectangle which wants to be 12 millimeters by whatever that is. Well, it's telling us that's 84 between there. What I would do is that's the point at which I'd probably do your cutout. Yeah. So
a slot.
Yeah, so there is a slot in that piece. So on my drawing here, maybe what I can do is I can draw a piece that's that big by 6, because that 6 would be half of the 12. Then if I trim that line out to give that effect, yeah, you can see you've got this sort of slot. What are these like symbols? These are just little symbols. They're constraints, so we can turn them on and off. It's where we're dimensioning things or positioning things. Okay.
Is it okay if my design over here is a little bit different from my final fusion design?
Of course, yeah. Bear in mind, you know, it's a step-by-step process, so things might change at different stages. So there you go. There we've basically got the key ingredients for what we want to create. If we now use our extrude button and we click that again, and we can remember that was also we click our extrude, we click that again, that we want to go to the same height, and that we want to go to the same height. And then we make them all 100. Okay, and we'll be looking at that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
The only thing we haven't got there is a base. So let's just add the base on there. From the sketch, exactly. So we can go back to turn our sketch on, and we also want to extrude that surface, and if we can see it, that surface, and we said 12 for that, did we, or 9?
We said 12.
No. Okay, 9 doesn't matter, there you go. And there you go. That's basically, that is your fusion drawing done, isn't it?
Yeah.
The only difference, or the only thing being, is that we want to make that look like it's, oops, escape. We want to make that look like it's got the appearance of come into here, go down to our wood,
What do you suggest to on this side? Because it's kind of empty right now.
Yeah, so on that side, what you could do is you could always put a piece running across here maybe. So what about if you did something like this and you said, I'm going to make that side a work plane, okay, and then I'm going to choose a rectangle, and on that work plane, maybe at the halfway point or close to, I'm going to draw a now this will be interesting to see what Fusion does with this. So it would actually come back to something like that, and then let's see what happens when we try and extrude that, but we want it to go to, so as soon as we start going through that curve, it's going from, can you see that's flicking between cut and join?
Mm-hmm.
So it defaults to joining when you're trying to add something there, and now it's going to cut that, and actually, well, you'll see what it does. It's going to give you that, which is not what we wanted. We can find a way around that, but that would be my. Does that make sense?
So make a second floor.
So you'd make like a shelf across there.
Yeah.
So you might tuck, I don't know, a stapler and an eraser down there or something, and that would be a little shelf.
And then maybe on top like a sharpener.
Yeah, exactly, a little horizontal shelf or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
You could, if you wanted to be. Yeah, it depends how far you want to go with it, Grace. Really, I mean. You could even make that a little dinky little pull-out drawer or something, couldn't you? It's a shelf on the shelf above,
and
that's a little dinky pull-out drawer or something, which would be interesting to make, but not impossible at all. Other than that, I'm not sure how you would make that usable. With the open front, you might at least need to say, right, well, I'm going to put a piece on here. Sorry,
maybe I could just close it off on that side.
Yeah, well, you could. You could always come onto there and say, right, I'm going to draw a piece that's going to sit on there. Let's make that 12 again. So I'm going to have a piece there, and that is going to be extruded to close that front piece off. Yeah, might not come all the way up, of course. You might only go 50% of the way up, something like that. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which actually probably looks more attractive than bringing it all the way up to the top, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it's not just a box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you've got one fully enclosed space, one largely enclosed space, and one open space for just that put any bits in there, couldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You could always, there's endless variations. You could always go back to that. Sorry, where's my right click not working? That's because I'm right. I could go back to that right click. You could bring that, say, 2/3 of the height. Was it 100 we had, didn't we, up to here?
Yeah.
Something like that. So you could make that. Say 70 high or whatever it happens to be. You could make that one that sits in there. Do that 12. Only 25 high or something like that, or 30. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Could I, if I were to do the kind of dividing two shelf option on the bigger space?
Yeah.
So is there any other way I can divide it so I don't just cut through it?
When you draw it on here?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me have a play around with that. The making it in real life is not too difficult. We would simply, those three parts would be connected together. Yeah, so that vertical piece, and that horizontal piece, you'd assemble three pieces to become one body. And then we would join those with adhesive to the base and this piece. If you're going to add those, maybe add those in later, I don't know. So let's go back then to that question and see if we can find a solution to that. So how do we deal with this? Let's try our E, and then we need to look at the distance is what's known as to object. So we want to pull that all the way to that object.
Because it's not curved as the edge.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's because the profile, when you pull, oh gosh, look what that's done. It's completely, so it's carried that, it's extruding that straight line. Do you see? And then obviously the straight line cuts through the material and then it comes out. Right. You might have to leave that one with me, Grace. I will have a look while I eat my lunch and I will come back to you on that. So, one side, two sides symmetric. So it's only one side. It is. I don't know what that is. What that one even does to object. The reason you use to object is because
be matched together.
Yeah. So if you change one, they'll change together.
Yeah, it was in the tutorial. I was talking about it for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So to all, however, no. Leave that with me. Let me have a word with Mr. Mike.
Okay.
He'll probably know immediately, and then I'll come back to you.
Can you email me the
video
procedure of the thing?
So if I stop.